real sports.
They can fit under
Like-
they can fit under the desk, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yes, like a suitcase.
They're all hitting that year where they're all about ready to grow or not grow, yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna be like colleges, but they give back. Freshman year.
I do like the 8th graders. I like watching them walk through, because you get a few of them and they're trying to look cool. And then the rest of them, I just enjoy that. And I understand, this is a high school, the hallways can be scary.
I can find the rest of your if you're on the 20. Oh, yeah, no, we can.
For when, what day?
One day.
We, I have it's on Teams.
Oh, it is, okay.
You click on the partridge post. It might take off. I had the part, I gotta go back and redo that because Google changed how they allow their media and a lot of them, they don't broadcast anymore. They make little changes, so I gotta go back and check, but thank you for reminding me, so I'll do that. So it will be on Teams, and it's also on my YouTube.
Okay.
All right, so this is the review package. It's actually thicker than last year, but it's because I added a few things from the College Board that you won't have to do, and I gave a little more room. So this is, we got a lot of stuff in American history. And first thing, we're making deals here. I am just making deals. And so, it came from the manager, you're gonna get like clear coat, you're gonna get all kinds of great deals from me outside of the car sales. It says 85, change that to 89. I'm giving you 4 percentage points, people, 4. I've gone crazy, somebody put me away. So, I know there's so much stuff in American history, we gotta do a review, but I started doing this years ago, and it is work, but it's helped people immensely. But what you gotta do is, you have to do bullet points, and think in terms of short IDs, what it is, example, why it's important. And some you need more, I have little space, you don't really need to write that much, bigger space for more. All the ones that are bold or have an asterisk, you have to do. And if you get that done, I'll turn it in, and when I grade this, it's your notes, it's your shorthand, I understand it. I go through and make sure that you did it seriously, you answered them, you try to get the correct answer. You didn't write things like, stuff happened, things, pizza. Yeah, you wrote real things, I'll give you credit. If you do all the ones in bold, and that's about half of them. As you get near the end, there's not near as many in bold. You can get 89%. If you do additional terms and things, like go to the review sessions, that's where you get more points. And that's up to me. And so it's about half of the terms you have to do. Now, last year, I actually had a little bit less pages. I made them do it all. And I decided, no. I wanted you to focus on what I thought was most important, then do additional ones as we review. And so I put them all with asterisks, just very basic information. This will be due tomorrow. Page. Someone third period. Okay, so May 8th. May 8th. So that is the Monday after the AP exam, with the idea being that you have time to study. You can look at it one last look. Yeah. No, it'd be pen, pencil. Crayon probably wouldn't be that efficient. Whatever you're comfortable with. And this thing I stole from this educational psychologist, I believe in this. I would use different size boxes, so you have to think about it and fit things in. That allows you to remember it. Because if you just do it on a sheet and just can write, especially if you're in a hurry, you'll just copy. You're trying to get things done. Here you have to think about it and put it in. You're not going to remember every detail, but when you're trying to recall during the test, it'll be there somewhere, and hopefully a lot of it will come back. And everybody who does this, they always say it helps. I know it's work, but it always helps. Part of taking a test like this, you come in, you're nervous, it's 4 hours, you start getting tired. If you don't know things, it makes you more nervous, it allows more panic. The more confident you are, the better you feel. Once again, I know that's easy for me to say. I'm not the one who has to take 4 APs, like some of you do. But still, it really does help. That's also why I'm giving you a lot of time to do this. And I will do review sessions. I do two big formal ones at night. Last year we had about 50 students, and both of them, everyone who could come, and I'll go through, I'll give a few hints, and then I'll go through as many of these as I could go. I think one of them last year, I really did like 55 or something. We go through a lot of stuff. And the good thing about those review sessions, you all kind of come together, you kind of feel better going through it, and you get to hear things and reinforce it. Even if you have it down, it reinforces. The big thing about this is, it's a hard test, but I want to reward you for studying. So this is worth 2 test scores. Normal test is 200 points. So like your DBQ, I made it out of 100, and then I doubled it. This is 400. So you do well on this. You get all the bold ones, and then add a little bit more. You got 400 points in A, for an A. That really will help semester grade. I really reward you. Really. I really mean it. You can really trust it. So, and one more thing. So I went through, I just made a bold, and I looked at that. I want to make sure you see the bold one, so I added an asterisk. On page 3, I somehow just put an asterisk and must have erased what was supposed to be here. So you get to guess what it's supposed to be on top of page 3. Social contract. Social contract. Kind of the big one. Also, if you know on a keyboard, asterisk is Control 8, right? Well, now that you know that, you notice the other one on the top. You have to do all 8 declarations of independence, all 8 of them, each one in detail. Obviously, that was supposed to be an asterisk. The other one I just noticed, I was doing this, and this was like a last-minute thing before I turned it in to get printed. On the last page, you have to do the E asterisk election of 1948. That's one of the most important E asterisk elections you're ever going to see. I'm just trying. It literally, like, I want to make sure they see the bold. I went through and did that. You also notice, like, you look at period 1. This is from the college board. And this is kind of their learning target. We cover these things in class, but I wanted you to see what they did for each unit. Because when they do the questions, they supposedly are looking at this. Now, remember I said supposedly. We've all done standardized tests. So we all know how they write standardized tests. But that's what they're thinking. And I leave you a little space to kind of think about how you like craft like a thesis for that. Okay. So this is due on May 8th, but if you have it done, so the day before the exam, I will look at these. I'll look at what you have done. I'll just quick peek at it. If you've got it pretty much done, I'll give you extra credit for these. I will give you extra credit, every single person. But I'm not going to collect it till after. Make sense? And I know it's a lot of work. I would be thinking the same thing. But as you get going on it, hopefully it will trigger other memories. You'll remember a lot of it. And we just want phrases. Yeah. Oh, the 5 theses. So that's the one I'm looking at. Basically, if you want to get that A, try to get 5. With these little facts, like look on the last page, I have the learning target. If you can craft like a thesis for that. And I put down 5 as a generic number. I was like over half. But just try to get, but the big thing is just, I'm not going to count that as much as long as you try a few of them. It's a really good project. And therefore, that's part of the reason why, you get your tests in your grade in July. I don't see your tests on. I would never, ever base your grade here on what you do on the APUSH. That seems absolutely ridiculous. I'm saying that because I know some places did. Can you imagine you had a bad day, you had a cold, you came in and your entire grade was, or the person grading was just going to have that day? But this is part of the reason why your final will be significantly different than the other final. It's going to be really basic questions and then just some short ideas. It's not going to be that full. I want a good hard final that first semester, and that was hard. You did well on it. But the second one, we've done the tests, we're winding down. It will be a lot easier. It will be in the regular classroom. All right, any questions? You happy? Relative, I know you got work to do. We have lots of time. Oh, one more thing, the last page and a half or so, that stuff will be getting near the end of the year. Don't focus on that near the end. And if we start getting a time crunch at the end, I might just do the last, like just help me fill it out. We might just, if we have to. You have a little bit of reading in the review book for the time after 1980, and I'll narrow it down. I'll give you something separate on that, for specifically the kind of things they ask after 1980, but it's only about 10 things. After 1980, for whatever reason, it's only about 5 to 6% of the things. And so then I will fill in any blanks. But the other thing too, there's hardly any questions on World War II on the exam. And makes no sense to me. I think part of the reason they think all the teachers really like, part of being an American history teacher like history, and World War II is really interesting, so they teach a lot. So we're actually not going to do a lot of World War II before these. That's why I'm going to try to get as much as we can. Then I'm going to spend one of the 2 weeks after just World War II. Kind of go back. I thought that'd be kind of a good way to finish out the exam. All right. So with that, let's go ahead then and finish up the 20s. Oh, so tomorrow it's just going to be like a terms quiz for that chapter 23 in the review book. Just a terms quiz. I have 18 questions. A little matching. So I'm going to 2 little groups of 9. That's it. And then 2 short IDs. And one of those choices on World War I, one of the choices on 20s. Any questions on that? I don't think it'll take you more than 20 minutes. But you guys write pretty fast. Sometimes good stuff. No, you write really fast. And so we do Hoover yesterday. Oh, and then tomorrow I will collect the thing for the killing fields and the walk through the 20th century, the 20s. I'll collect them both to just give you a few points of credit to them. Just 2 extra points. I don't think you want them. If you don't want the points, let me know and I will give you. I'll be glad to. And I'll type in all the grades in too. All right. Did you guys notice it was icy this morning? Who saw a wreck? I only saw the after effects of wreck. I never actually saw one. I heard the parking lot was kind of like a pinball thing. And I do like how people speed up. Don't you like this? That's a perfect storm, don't you think? It started snowing and raining, so you got that nice layer of ice. And then that slush layer, and then powder snow on top. It's just simple. I did see someone fall. And it's one of those, they fell, and it's like, sorry. I'm 50 yards away. I won't laugh, because I'll fall next. I always feel bad and uncomfortable. At least it's not me. Did anyone fall? You did fall? Hurt?
No, I caught myself before.
I did and then caught myself. So, let's go. We got Coolidge. We got Harding. Who was Harding's vice president? Coolidge. And return to what? Yeah, which is normal.
Yeah.
The old stuff. And what is the kind of reaction to the modernism and technology and change, the religious change called that started in 1910? Yeah, fundamentalism. And what was the trial that kind of personified this? Yeah, Scopes, what? And that comes to that this mistake that a lot of people have about evolution, that monkeys are evolving into humans, or we evolved from monkeys, which is not at all. We all have different common ancestry. But anyways, let's get to the pliable workers. So unions were who was elected in 28? The great engineer, the Secretary of Commerce. And who had the great voice like a gangster and was Catholic, the person who ran against him? Al Smith. Did you like the voice? Oh, it didn't work? You want to hear it one more time? I'll play the notice tomorrow. So unions were destroyed in the 1920s, Red Scare. And good or bad about unions, you can imagine it really is relative, your point of view. You know, if you're an employer, you probably don't like unions. And there are issues, obviously, with any group, an organization, especially the bigger they get, they kind of become distant from the workers. But unions raise wages. You know, they just have this effect of raising wages. We saw, even of people who aren't in union, we saw this a couple of years ago with Amazon. Amazon was paying their warehouse workers a starting wage about $10 an hour. They raised it to $15 an hour, starting at their warehouses, because there was talk of starting unions to keep unions out. And so it will have that effect of people who aren't in unions. So if you get rid of unions, that effect is over. Next, all these new machines and technology and change, we have what's called technological unemployment, where workers, especially skilled craftsmen or just even industrial workers using the old machines, they're being replaced by these new assembly lines and new machines. Technological unemployment. We saw the same things. There was a brand new typewriter that was easier to use, and so you didn't need as many workers. A new calculator. We changed for accounting. You don't need as many if you have a calculator. And a cash register. Cash registers change things dramatically. It lowers the number of workers. If workers are losing their job because of technology, what happens to wages? Because we have more workers than any job. Remember, labor, wages is decided in the market. More workers looking for jobs, wages drop. Next, so for most workers in the 1920s, for 93% of workers, if you take out the top 7%, their wages dropped in real terms related to inflation. So if you take inflation into account. So for example, yesterday it came out that for the month of February, the inflation rate on average, and it's a pretty crude measurement, but still was 6%. That meant that in February of 2023, prices were 6% higher than February of 2022. Actually, prices didn't go up hardly at all between February and January. But for a year, that's how they rate for a year. So let's say you were making, I'm just throwing a number out, $20,000 a year in February 1920, or February 2022. February 2023, your wage was still $20,000 a year. You didn't, the nominal figure was not cut, but what happened? Say it again. Yeah. So in reality, in real terms, your wages went. Can't buy as much. So that's what real terms, taking inflation or deflation. We always have a little bit of moderate inflation just because deflation is like the end of the economy. So they sent us in the video, and I want to make sure we got this. 50% of the people live below the poverty line. Now, poverty was $750 a year, and there's been a lot of inflation, and also people and what is needed for life is different today than then. Where did that come from? He walked in and just handed it and walked out?
Yeah.
That could have been a shiv. You know what a shiv is? You guys didn't do hard time like I did. When I was in prison, a shiv is like a homemade knife. You guys won't make it in the pen. I tell you, you got to toughen you up. Now I forgot what I was talking about. Let me tell you more about prison. All right. So, and this is still a crude measurement too, like the poverty rate today is crude. Because, you know, think about it, for example, money in Helena, Montana will buy you more than money in San Francisco, or goes a lot farther. You know, in San Francisco, really high cost of living. New York City, just as Helena has higher cost of living than Townsend. So money, you know, just it's relative. But think about what it's effect for farmers. Even though farmers have the same effect, the median yearly pay for farmers. Now I told you in the video 300, and I thought that doesn't seem right, so I had to look it up. The median in 1929 was $273. Median means half the farmers made under $273. And so we have big parts of the economy that are really struggling. And here, This is the percentage of total income, the total amount of money that was made each year. It's called personal income. And wages, which most people have. Your wages were nearly 60% of all income in 1920. Look how much wages went down. That meant that most income, most money that people got were things like stocks or profit dividends, things like that. So that means fewer people were making money. And a lot of this era is going to be personified by Andrew Mellon. Andrew Mellon was an investment banker who made his money the old-fashioned way. What's the old-fashioned way? Yeah, rich parents. He inherited it. And most certainly nothing wrong with that. But he also believed he earned every penny of it. He deserved it. I must be better. He talked a lot about breeding. He was big into that. My parents were very smart, intelligent. I'm well-bred. He said that a lot. People still say stuff like that. You remember the term for selective breeding by race? What was that called? I told you yesterday. Why am I bent over like this? It's kind of creepy. Why? You remember what that's called? Yeah, eugenics. Eugenics. And so with that, don't worry about that. I'm not going to go into detail. Let's start right here. He was the Treasury Secretary for all three Republican presidents. All three. And his slogan was basically much like Cooley. You let the market sort it out. Those who should be on top will be on top. Those in the bottom are going to be on bottom. Very laissez-faire. If you fail, if you're poor, that's your fault. And so you combine this with breeding, he definitely was very much social Darwinism. And like I said, social Darwinism is still incredibly dominant. We all have little elements of that. I'm better in some way, but we all are different degrees, clearly. And his whole economic policy, the Secretary of the Treasury back then really had a lot of impact on economic policy, was to funnel money to the wealthy. And let's be clear about it. This is government policy that decides the market, the rules, what happens, how much money will go flow to the top, how much money will flow to the bottom. These are rules created by government. And so this policy has a massive impact. And its idea was, and all we need to do is if we focus money to the top, they will take this money and invest. So give them more money and they'll invest. But the important thing is, and why I put a but, that is basically taking his idea, his principle that those on top are smarter. They're better. They're rich because they have these natural abilities. And so we'll give them money and they will make rational, intelligent decisions. But they might not, or they might build, or they might have gold toilet seats, which is a thing. Solid gold toilet seats. Or like today, what did I sell a $1,000 cup of cocoa? Because they shave gold into it. You drink the gold. You pay $1,000 for it. Got a couple there. You don't taste the gold. But that's what we call, I don't know if that's what you call rational. I guess it depends on what you want. But the idea is they will take it and invest. Or what will they invest in? They might just try to get rich quick. There's a but there. And then that is why the two crowning achievements of Mellon as Secretary of the Treasury are going to be two massive tax cuts. One big one in 21 and then a massive one in 26. The highest marginal income tax rate would go down from its World War I high, 73%, down to 25%. There were about 20, I think there were 22 tax rates. The highest was 73% for very, very, very tip-top incomes. Nobody pays even close to 73% of their income in taxes. Nobody does. I will explain how marginal taxes work. It's a system, but these were progressive rates that went up higher for income. So this was a regressive tax, a tax cut designed purely for the very wealthy. He wrote the bill that was proposed by friends in Congress. Very common. He gave himself in the bill he wrote an $800,000 a year tax cut. That's about 18 million today. A tax cut. But that's his idea. I'm not doing this because I want the money. No, I'm not greedy. I'm doing it because people like me know how to invest. It is your choice whether or not to believe he's telling the truth when he says that. But that was his justification. So this is a cartoon showing here's melons, like here's prosperity, a big melon. And the Republicans do the tax cut, we'll all get our slice. And all get rich. That's the point. And so we're going to get to his economic program. Well, that's Mellon right there. He's going to be one of the best known secretaries of Treasury in American history. In fact, and it's his hero, and it makes sense, was Alexander Hamilton. But a very similar idea. Help the very wealthy, encourage investment. Anybody know the Secretary of Treasury today? Very important still. This one, it's not this, a little bit more obscure, but it's Janet Yellen. She was a former head of the Federal Reserve. So we're coming to the economic program called trickle-down economics. And its roots come from Hamiltonian economics, laissez-faire economics, free labor economics, Whig economics, trickle-down economics. With the idea of trickle-down is the money will start at top. So you get money at top and it'll go down to the bottom. And it's implying all the way, you just accept that they'll always make the best rational decision. It'll be the best for everybody. It's the rising tide will raise all ships. And so you're going to make a little table. And so we do, I do economics. I mean, they're tied with history. I think science is too. But we did the boom bust cycle, remember that whole cycle. And that was pretty big economics. That's real economics. This is real economics too. In a nice handy table. Are you ready for this? So it's going to top on, leave some area here for government programs. Because then we got to see how this comes. This is the important thing we learn. How these policies directly affect government decisions that will affect us to this day. So the wealthy. So the idea is wealthy are on top. And they're wealthy. This assumes they're wealthy because they're good business leaders, they're entrepreneurs, they're creative, they have initiative. They also have some luck, but there's something special about them. And you give them money. And so the money, I have the arrow going the wrong way, didn't realize it till later, but that is. This is going to be government action. So we have to put a column here. So we'll put a column here, but we're not there yet. So government action. This is not abstract. This is policy. So this is the policy of the government to pass laws or to ignore laws that will funnel money into the hands of the wealthy. And what will they do with that money? Here's the key thing. They will build factories. They will build, as Coolidge called them, temples. The term for that economically is supply. Supply for goods will go up. Supply. So production goes up, supply goes up. Here's the thing. If supply is going up, what does that mean? Did we miss something? What does that mean? Meaning workers. Employment will go up. So money in their hands, and they produce. And they'll give that money out. And produce. Well, now you have more workers with money in their hands. What would that mean? Demand. And here is the very elegant and simple, also the appeal of trickle-down economics. It is so simple. You put money in their hands, you eventually get demand. And demand, they got to buy stuff. And who will they buy stuff? From them. And this is the elegant way that trickle-down economics works. And we definitely saw examples of this. Productivity went up. There was increased supply of goods. We have all these cars and everything. And you just leave. Just leave right now. So we have a little bit left to finish. You can get it on your own. Enjoy the math competition. You bunch of punks. We all know math is made up, right? Who's with me? See you tomorrow. This will be recorded if you get the last little bit, but we have the test really quick. All right. So this is what we call supply side economics. And it has this very, very basic thing. It's also called Say's laws. Supply creates demand.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. You're doing it too? All right. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Goodbye. Good luck. Okay, let me tell you the answers. Supply creates demand. So as long as you help those with money. And don't forget, we have talked about this. The economy has grown. There are more production. We talked about all these cars, these new creative banking system, all this stuff happened. And so production and the size of the economy went up. Oh, one more word. This is the essence of conservative economics today. Anybody who says they're conservative economically believes in trickle-down economics. Funnel money to the hands of the wealthy. And we live in Montana. 2 days ago, the governor just passed a whole series of laws that were based on this philosophy. Massive tax cuts and other cuts for the very wealthy, with the idea being this will encourage very rich people from out of state to come in to buy real estate. And the thought process is to create jobs. And so we're going to take a big cut to the budget, which hopefully will be made up by all these businesses coming in. Or they'll just have to cut education. So, government action. So what was the government action? Remember I said the government action off to the side? So we gotta go through, these are real policy decisions. So what is government going to do? Well, the goal is of all of these, yes, we want to put money into people's hands, but the number one way they saw this is cut wages. If we can keep wages low, that puts more money in the hands of the suppliers so they can produce more. In fact, they would say we're unleashing their potential. Now, I think you might also see one of the problems with trickle-down economics. If the goal is to have the money trickle down to wages to the new employed so they have demand, yet the ultimate goal is to cut wages, do you see a problem? There's going to be problems in this as there will be in demand side. There's no perfect solution. So you really got to come in, therefore, you got to come to what you think the priority of the country should be and of political parties. And yes, this is Republicans, but a lot of Democrats agreed with this too in the 1920s. So first one, we talked about this. Those are the tax cuts. Two big regressive tax cuts. Next, intensely anti-regulation. Remember the progressives thought we could regulate? And what were the big ones? Ignore antitrust laws. So there's going to be a wave of monopolies. Monopolies funnel money to the top. Monopolies cut wages. No financial regulation, like regulation of banks. I want to make sure regulation of the stock market. I should add, President Trump was very much supply side, trickle down, very much in that idea. And yet really only two bills passed while he was president. And one was a massive tax cut for the very wealthy. And the other one was a big deregulation of banks, including the bank that no longer had inspectors that we bust called the Silicon Valley Bank. And yes, yesterday it looked like maybe the crisis might be ebbing. Today looked really bad as of an hour ago again. Isn't it fun to be riding the wave? I don't know what's gonna. It's not 2008, but it could be pretty bad. And also know like worker safety, quality, because that's cost. So you don't have these regulations to protect, or like child labor laws like that. If there's child labor laws, costs go down because it lowers wages. And in the 1960s was the same thing with environmental laws. Environmental laws, the same kind of deal. It's a cost to lower your emissions or not pollute as much. I should add there were a couple laws. There were one law proposed to limit to allow for more child labor in Montana, but failed this legislative session. But a lot of more conservative states like Arkansas and others just did child labor laws to allow workers as young as 13 in factories. I think it's about time. You saw those 8th graders. They should be in factories, right? They should be going through our hallways. Who's with me? And some of you are like, yeah, what the heck, right? All right. Anti-union. The Red Scare, that was government that was a government program to get rid of labor unions. Wages dropped. Also, safety net. Now, safety net is a term meaning some bare minimum, like bare minimum wage or economic idea that we won't let people go down. We won't let people get too poor and become too destitute. So some bare minimum. And we have a tiny little safety net. If you go to other countries, they have big safety nets. They're totally opposed to it. They want that threat to workers that they could become destitute. And so, for example, Social Security is an old age pension. And that will be passed during the Roosevelt administration in the next decade, but there was talk about it. They are completely opposed to this. That's why, for example, both of our representatives, which are in the House, conservative Republicans, have signed on to a petition to cut Social Security right now for people who are retired. Trust me, when you get older, you start thinking about these things. Here's why Social Security is such a big deal. Let's say you're getting near the end. Your retirement's a new thing relative to history. If you're too old to work or getting too old, you really can't work anymore, but you still gotta live. If you know you have a pension, a little bit of money at the end, that might make you more likely I can retire with dignity, know I'll survive. If you're getting near the end and you have no idea, you're like most people, haven't saved very much money and it's getting close to the end. Keep working. Keep working. What does that do to wages? That means more people who are working, greater supply of workers, wages drop. Old age pension lowers, or old age pension raises wages for those who are working. Just the way it is. Next, no welfare. So no help for the poor. So nothing for people who for whatever reason, are in areas that are just economically depressed. They can't find jobs, they can't find work. And heck, if they're in debt, they can't pay back. And heck, if you lose your home, it's almost impossible to do little things like find a job and organize because it's just so difficult. No way. Because there's no way you lose your job and are poor and impoverished and having difficulty to get out of it. That encourages people who do have jobs to take whatever job they can get. If you take whatever job you can get, you're not bargaining for higher wages, drops wages. Same thing with unemployment insurance. Unemployment is something that this is also passed in the New Deal. When you get a job, you pay a little bit in unemployment insurance, with the idea being if you're laid off, you get a small percentage of your paycheck for a while until you find another job. So not only makes you more secure in your job, but also if there's mass unemployment, there's a mass layoff of bad economic times, you won't have a whole group of people who went from spending money to having no money. So a little bit of money because of unemployment insurance. But this raises wages. One more. I put this in parentheses because it wasn't a big deal in the 20s, but it would become an issue in the 30s through today. No, like national health. Like most other countries, the United States does not have this because healthcare, if you're reliant upon your job for your healthcare, you can't leave your job. You can't bargain for higher wages. Healthcare is incredibly expensive, especially if you have children. You got to care for them and you never know what's going to happen. Same thing with education. If you come out of college with college debt, you got to pay that debt. You can't mess around. You're not going to say, I'm going to find this ideal job. I'm young and I'm going to make a difference. No, you got to take the first job you can get. You got to pay back that debt. That means you're not going to be picky. Your bargaining power drops. And that means wages go down. Health insurance. If you know you have health insurance, that means you might be more likely to do the same deal. I don't like this job. I know I'll be okay with health insurance, so I find a better job. It changes things. Or start my own business. Next. And so what this means is desperate workers mean wages. You have desperate workers, they take whatever they can. So for example, we have higher inflation now. The Federal Reserve is raising interest rates. Well, they were as of last week to try to create a recession. In fact, a policy paper from the Federal Reserve said that they want to get rid of, in the next year, they want to make 2 million people lose their job. They want 2 million unemployed people, with the idea being they have less money, less demand, less inflation. You get 2 million more unemployed people, which is twice the size of Montana, you got a lot more desperate workers, and that will always riches. For most people, AKA probably. So that's the government action. And that's one way to talk about this, because we're talking 1920s, but these are all the issues today. I mean, more conservative people are going to talk about getting rid of regulations or tax cuts. Now, we will get to the liberal economics, are called demand side, in next week. We'll get to that next week. Sound good? This is pretty big economics. And this is policy. And what was the results? Oh. The results. There was vast amounts of prosperity. Vast amounts. But it was very uneven prosperity. Fortunes were made like you can't believe. You would not believe how many people would buy a yacht. It became the thing to buy a yacht. And the same thing happened in the new rich today. It's a big deal to buy yachts. Who has a yacht? Anybody? That sail around Canyon Ferry? I have a dreadnought. Next. Also with that though, do you remember the boom bust cycle? And so we have a boom. What is the first thing that happens when it starts spiraling down that deflationary curve to a bust? Remember that first thing? Overproduction. If the whole thing is geared towards production and supply, wouldn't overproduction be a problem? I showed you those figures about how many cars Ford was making to give you an idea about the fact that they were just producing so much. And eventually prices would drop, profits are going to drop. And that means they can't pay back their debts. And you ever try to start a business? My guess is you probably haven't. Some of you might have done that. You might have a parent that was trying to start a small business. Or involved in that. No work at all, right? No stress at all. Easy. How hard is it? When you think about a small business, you start a business, you got to set it up yourself, the stress involved, the risk involved. It's really difficult. The time, everybody I know who has started a business on their own has to work twice as much as they thought they were going to. It's really stressful. I know some of you do have a parent who has a small business. It's really hard. Wouldn't it be easier just to buy some land or some stock and, let it roll? And if you have extra money, do you remember buying on margin where you had to put 10% down? Remember that? Andrew Mellon got $8 million. I'm sorry, $800,000. He wrote that tax cut. How much stock can he buy? You put 10% down, how much stock can you buy? So he had $800,000 tax cut. If he's buying on margin, how much stock can he buy? $8 million, because he puts that. Why not just put that all down? Or why buy just $800,000? Use that as collateral and buy $8 million, right? The rules encourage speculation. The rules encourage it. Starting a business, operating that's tough. Let's just get rich quick. And there's an allure. All of us haven't. Trust me, we all would like to make money without working, right? Wouldn't it be great? Just, I think people buy lottery tickets. Even though there's virtually no chance of winning. So in 27, remember the year the big tax cut was 26? 27, a real estate boom in Florida. A massive real estate boom. People started buying land in Florida like crazy. Oh, the whole thing was, hey, you have a little extra money, let's go down to Florida, it's warm. And air conditioning was just beginning, and people started buying, it became the big deal. I have money, I can go spend my winter months in Florida. And pretty soon people just started buying, borrowing money, buying. And the price started going up and up and up and up. People started buying land in Florida sight unseen. Now think about sight unseen land in Florida. What kind of land were a lot of people buying? Especially Florida back then. Swamp. It became the joke. You want some swampland in Florida? I got some swampland for sale. So people started just buying this land. We're all going to get rich. You're an idiot. You buy a bunch of land, you sell it, you can do anything you want. And then all of a sudden people literally, it was like, oh, we're buying swamp. And the bubble burst. Prices tanked. Banks lost a lot. But there's still rich people rolling with money or trying to make back the money they lost in Florida. So they turn to the stock market. It's no coincidence that the stock market boom would begin in 28 and the bubble would grow and grow and grow and grow and grow through 29. So here is a cartoon showing the problem with this. We have all this speculation. Here's the Wall Street boom and leaving most people behind. And here's the problem with speculation. If people are speculating, the money's not trickling down. Look at your thing. Look at that table. Isn't it supposed to be the money supposed to go to production? Is the money trickling down? Also, what kind of people are buying and selling the stock or the real estate? What kind of people? Tall, short, rich. So they're just exchanging money with themselves. The money's just flowing between them. Is the money trickling down? Every single time there's a big tax cut for the top in our history has led to a speculative boom. Every single time. The big tax cut in 81 led to a real estate and stock market boom. The big tax cut in 2001 and 2003 led to the real estate boom that crashed in the Great Recession. But you guys were little kids during. The big tax cut in 2017 led to a real estate stock market boom we saw during COVID, but also like these speculative things, trying to get rich quick, like cryptocurrency. Or what are the things I sold? The little pictures, NFTs, yeah. That's all just speculative, trying to get rich quick. And so with that, the inequality of wealth went up dramatically. Now, get down these two things for inequality of wealth. Monopolies. The amount of monopolies and concentration of companies went up dramatically. So that focuses money to the top. And by the end of the decade, the richest 1% had 51% of the wealth. The richest 1%. Now, whatever about the social, political consequences of this, you make up your own mind. Maybe someday you could be in that 1%. But I think you might see the problem. That means if the richest 1% have 51% of the wealth, who's buying the cars? Who's buying the clothes that the companies are producing like magic? You get my gist there? How many cars can a really rich person buy? And don't say, look, they got money. No, I mean, seriously. How many cars, seriously, could Elon Musk buy? Ration, how many cars? But is he going to? Of course not. How many cars will he buy? And he's not the richest man in the world anymore, so he made so many bad business decisions. But how many cars? 100 maybe? Is that enough when they're making 5 million cars a year? Who's going to buy the stuff? Eventually, those who don't have money are going to say, I can't afford it. Guess what's coming in 29? It's coming fast. All right, with that happy note, to a test tomorrow. 18 questions, 2 short IDs. Go through the outfit. It's gonna snow. What's the temperature? It was supposed to get up to maybe 30. It's 32. Oh, it's gonna be so icy tomorrow. See ya. If we get a little bit of melting, oh, it's gonna be so much fun.
That's not trash.
It's like bumper cars. You're gonna have a blast. Just when it's icy, just hit the gas.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's the way I drive.
Don't do that. You know what? There are people who do that. They think they have rules on it. Drive slow.
You know what?
Was it that cold back there? It's pretty cold. Huh? Not smart.
I do love economics so much. Like, it all makes so much sense on paper. But it's put into practice and everything falls apart. I feel like this is most economics really.
Yeah. It reminds me that Harry Truman said he only wants, in economics, there's all different possibilities and everything. And he said, I want one arm that's economist. I'm tired of two arms that's economist. Because he'll say, this will happen. But on the other hand, he's tired of that, because, yeah. See you tomorrow. I better have a lunch or I'll be really mad. What did you bring for lunch? Oh, nothing.